And welcome to this week's episode of the Dr. Tech Show on YouTube, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show where we talk tech, a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. So, Sweyn, on this day in January, how's the weather where you are?
In Orkney, the weather is typical January, horrible, mucky weather.
Well, in Birmingham, I've had some sun through the blinds earlier on, but it's kind of gone a bit dull again. Hopefully, we'll get out for a walk later on. I think it's more important than ever for one's mental health to make sure we get some air and light during the day.
Yes, you need good clothes, no such thing as bad weather.
Absolutely, that's it. And vitamins. I'm on a regime of D3 and other B12 and stuff like that. Are you supplementing in any
I
way?
think so far north we've got a serious vitamin D problem here. So I should be, but not really.
Yeah. Now I've seen D3 recommended a lot by as kind of immune to help boost your immune system. So
Yeah,
I think it's
hard.
good to help. Yeah. So we have some celebrations as usual around this time and some events coming up that we want to tell our readers and listeners about. And the first one is Monday, the 18th of January, is Martin Luther King Day. And this day celebrates the life and achievements of Martin Luther King Jr., who was an influential American civil rights leader. He was the chief spokesperson for nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement, which successfully protested racial discrimination in federal and state law. I think a lot of people will be aware of Martin Luther King, but it's always good to remind people who may not, I'm sure we have listeners and readers who are young and may not have heard of Martin Luther King. Is he someone that featured in your life a bit, Sweyn?
I think I've always been aware of him. What I didn't realize until recently, when the internet got going and you start to meet people from around the world, I didn't realize it was a public holiday in the US this day. And the tradition is, I believe, that as many people as possible try and do something of service to their local community on this day. I think I was hearing that on the radio or on CNN or somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the tradition for Martin Luther King Day. So that sounds like a good idea.
Excellent. Yes, we'd encourage that. And another thing that's been happening or celebrating maybe for some people around this time of year is Veganuary. January is Veganuary month. This is a month-long celebration of all things vegan, and it was created to encourage non-vegans to try out the lifestyle. It's often referred to as a lifestyle, not a diet. Vegans who practice veganism aim to reduce the suffering of animals, help the planet, and improve global health by not eating any animal products such as meat, dairy, or eggs, and also by abstaining from contributing to animal exploitation, such as honey production, the creation of leather goods, and the industrial farming of animals. Veganuary month was launched in the UK in January 2014 by vegan founders Jane and Matthew, who quite simply want to see a vegan world. They know they need to start somewhere, and one of the biggest barriers to veganism was a simple lack of awareness. So was started as an attempt to change public opinion on veganism and provide advice and support to people looking at the transition. Held in January, the event is perfectly located to attract those making the New Year's resolutions and is now one of the most popular New Year pledges. Well, again, Sweyn, how's your attitude to veganism? What do you think?
I admire veganism. I don't think I could possibly follow such a strict diet. Though personally, I mean, I don't eat anything like as much meat as I used to, but I think it would take a very great deal of change in myself to give up cheese, for example.
Yeah, that would be a big one for me as well. I was surprised when I went to a local vegan shop a year ago or more, to find out about honey. That honey's not
Honey's not
uh,
vegan, no, because it
strictly,
depends
yeah,
on the work
on a
of the
strict
bees.
vegan diet.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it seems, I don't know, it seems they produce the honey anyway. So who gets the honey if vegans don't eat it? I suppose I mean there are other non-vegans obviously, but yeah. So that
that's
seemed odd
that's
to
not
me.
a argument I hope ever to get involved in.
I've learned a lot about honey in the last year or more. Mostly that if you do use honey and it's something you have in your diet, that the best thing is to try and get honey that's from your local area.
That's right.
So when I go to Ireland, I try to make sure that I get honey for my mum from her local area.
Yeah.
It's quite
So
popular.
yeah.
Okay, and another one, and this one we picked up because, particularly because of John and John's love for his dogs, and I know the family is continuing to walk the lovely dogs. Apparently, this month is Walk Your Dog Month. This was when you
Yay.
discovered Sweyn, um, and I only think a certain lot more people have dogs now than since lockdown. Animals have become very important, more important to people. And I've seen a lot more dog owners in our park across the road as well. You've got dogs, haven't you, Swain?
We've got two dogs. Yes, a
Mm.
large greyhound called Alfie and a middle-sized lurcher called Tara. And they both thoroughly enjoy a good walk. And
Mm.
Tara is very fond of chasing a ball, but Alfie doesn't chase anything except small animals. So he's not so good at that. But yeah, walking the dog's great.
They get on okay with each other?
Most of the time, yes. Alfie's a bit greedy and tends to try and go for Tara's food, so there's trouble then. But apart from that, it's fine.
I've been following a thing on YouTube I picked up called Charlie the Golden, which is a someone's put on about their golden retrievers, and they make as if the dogs talk and stuff. It's quite funny. And the dogs even have their own like words for things, what the fluff and heck, and it's American. I think it's American anyway.
Right.
But it's very funny to see them because they obviously film the dogs and then they put the voiceover in, and it's
Yes.
very convincing.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen Andrew Cotter with Olive and Mabel. You've seen that, perhaps. The
That's not
sports
one I
commentator
know.
called Andrew Cotter. He does the same thing. He films his two dogs and then he commentates as if they're involved in some complicated sport.
Yeah.
Olive and Mabel. It's good. And the thing that I always used to like seeing most days from John was his #dog walk tweets, because there are a few people who do that. And so it's always if you're feeling deprived of canine company, search for #dog walk and you'll see lots of lovely dogs.
Nice. Yes, I think Dan Slee is doing a broadcast of somebody who takes his dogs for a walk. Is it in the Highlands or it's
Yes, I
in
saw
a
that.
rural area anyway?
Yes, I can't find. Yes, I have to search. It's not
Mm,
got the #dog walk tag, that,
no,
so I'll have to search it
must
separately.
tell him to add that for more
More exposure.
yeah. And we've picked up a few other events that are happening this week that might be of interest to people who listen to this show. On Thursday, 21st of January at 3:30, Citizens Online, the wonderful charity that supports people getting online and being online, are running a webinar called Starting a Digital Champion Project, which I think will be of great interest to lots of people, and we'll certainly put that out on our Twitters as well. This is a free monthly webinar where Citizens Online will share what they've learned around role description, marketing, channels, what has worked and what hasn't worked for them. And they say there'll be time for questions and discussion. I've already mentioned that to a few people here in Birmingham. And I think that'll be of great interest, particularly because Citizens Online have such great experience, over many years of running digital champion projects. Them and Digital Unite, I think, have done a lot of work on this. So it's good to see some kind of basic training happening. A webinar, I imagine it'll be just for about an hour or something. But I've always found Citizens Online events highly useful, so I would recommend that. And then the other event that we've picked up is, well, it's not an event, sorry, it's a response to a digital strategy consultation. And this is for our Welsh listeners and readers.
Hello, Wales.
Friday 22nd of January is the deadline for comments on the digital strategy for Wales, currently out to consultation. Mission for Digital Inclusion. And this is a post we picked up by Julie James, the Welsh Minister for Housing and Local Government. So she's asking people to respond. Are these the right actions that she's listed? What do you see as the barriers for gaining sector-wide buy-in? Do you think there are any gaps? And if so, what are they? And what would your priorities be? And are there examples from outside Wales where digital inclusion drives improved service delivery, e.g. NHS Digital? And on the screen now, Sweyn has put up Mission 4, which is around digital inclusion, which is the mission is to equip people with the motivation, access, skills, and confidence to engage with an increasingly digital world based on their needs. So they have four prongs coming out of that central mission. Ensure no citizen is left behind as we embrace a digital first approach, keeping digital inclusion at the heart of all we do. Ensure digital confidence, motivation, access, and skills is embedded, aligned, and embraced by all sectors in Wales, delivering against a single clear mission. Number three, ensure all sector with a specific focus on health and care staff gain the skills, knowledge, and confidence to deliver, to support patients and care residents to benefit from digital technology. And number four, ensure we develop appropriate and sustainable interventions to mitigate the negative effects that data poverty has on people. And they're all things we've talked about on this show from other people as well. So it's good to see that happening. I think you, Sweyn, you said a similar thing had happened in Scotland recently. They'd done a consultation.
Yes, a similar thing. A national digital strategy for Scotland was consulted upon by the Scottish Government. That the consultation for that closed just before Christmas. But there was quite a lot of discussion and work went into that in advance of that deadline.
It'd be good to see what happens out of those consultations going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are returning to our review of 2020, which we started 2 weeks ago, and then last week we had a guest, Jennifer Jones. So we thought we'd still carry on to review the guests that we had up to the end of last year, because although our programs are available on YouTube, it's just good to remind people of the kind of things we talked about. And we're very grateful to our guests for coming on, and we still welcome more guests. I don't know about you, Sweyn, but I am, regularly on the hunt for new guests to have that would fit into this show.
Oh, yes, very
people
much.
people who've helped people to get online, or people who are coming online themselves for the first time. Right. And we hope they find things that we talk about on this program useful. So
yes, I'll give fair warnings to anyone that I meet at UK GovCamp next from Thursday onwards, that I'll be bearing you in mind for a guest slot on this show.
Actually, that's a good reminder. UK GovCamp, which we mentioned last week, is happening this week on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
That's
right. If you had signed up for the non-swag event element of the event, the leaflet, I'm just holding it up and showing it on screen now, and other goodies, lots of stickers, a notebook, which we talked about previously, the usefulness of having notebooks, and I've just dropped some of the prompt cards on the floor.
And note cards and,
these are brilliant. I'm going to have to demonstrate these. This one says, "May I speak next, please?" Now they have the on reverse as well, but it's upside down, so you can't read it from the back without, unless you can turn your head. But anyway, "May I speak next, please?" is one of them. This one is, "Be right back." Very useful. Let me see. This one is, "You're breaking up." Now that happens sometimes, so it's good to have that one.
I want to invent a stand for the "Be Right Back" one, so you can leave it on your screen when you've gone.
Piece of sellotape. Piece of sellotape coming from the low tech.
One of those Mr. Bean telephone light things, Remember
that? Okay.
Mr. Bean had a joke about how to know that the telephone's ringing when you're blind. He had a thing on his head with a light in front of his head, and of course he answered the phone and said hello, and couldn't hear anything.
This one, of course, which we're very keen on, and we've all said to each other multiple numbers of times. I saw a T-shirt with this on, but I didn't get it because I thought, what's the point in having a T-shirt when it's down there? You need to be up on your head. one of those games
yes.
that play. You want some
kind of system that would go like
that. And let me just see what else. The ones on the floor. Okay, so this one is, "Slow down, please." I don't think I've ever said that to anybody, but I'm sure it can come in useful. Sorry, that one's upside down. Awesome.
That's the only one I've ever actually seen used, I must admit.
Yeah. This one can be handy as well if you want to leave a meeting without interrupting the flow. And they're left a blank as well. And I've only penciled this in, but I don't know if you can see that.
Hug.
I just think sometimes, especially on the calls I'm on, people are talking about things that are personal, and
Mm.
you want to
Yeah.
send a reaction, and the Zoom reactions don't really offer the heart one, I suppose. Put that up now, but it's I think hug is one I'm going to be finding a use for in my calls to people, and it'll be interesting to see what other people do. We should have a competition for the best, or not maybe not the best, but a range of what people put on their DIY cue cards.
Yes. There
Um,
should be an exhibition at the end. Indeed, I
for
think there should be an
GovCamp.
exhibition.
The
Yeah.
other thing I thought of, and this leaflet is really handy, and it kind of tells you bits and pieces about the event, and also the a brief guide to the code of conduct, a brief explanation of what the UK GovCamp is, opening and closing, blah blah, corridor camp, so you can still put in
I'm looking forward to
more
Cowder.
informal
It's almost an
sessions.
unconference.
Yeah.
It's even
And
less
they're also doing
structured.
cheese camp on Tuesday and a tech test on Wednesday, which sounds really good. But I thought when I looked at it, just for the if there's a future version of this, a blank space to write in the sessions that you attended might have
Yes.
been nice to have. But I think
Yes.
there's something about VAT on publications. If you can write in them, they change the
Oh.
something like that. I've heard that before somewhere else, so
Hmm.
that might be relevant.
I believe anything about VAT.
Yeah. So I think there'll be some
Ignore
interesting.
that for now.
Somebody else is going to answer that, and yeah. So yeah, I think hopefully UK GovCamp will be very interesting, and you and I are both assisting at that as well,
Yes.
um, at some of the sessions. So looking forward to being with friends and colleagues and making new friends
Indeed. Indeed.
at UK GovCamp, and as you say, picking up some new speakers for the show.
I am, and this year I don't have to travel 700 miles to get there. I can just come upstairs to this same workstation and
Studio.
collaborate.
Yeah.
Yay! Studio One.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I saw you'd put on Twitter your previous physical
Well,
journey to UK GovCamp.
usually I'm paying for this trip myself, so I want to do it cheaply, which means you take buses and trains and things, which takes forever to get through Scotland and off down to London. But
How long did it take you?
I can't remember. I think I stopped for the night to stay with a friend, so it's not really fair to. It's the best part of a day
Yeah,
of actual traveling.
good. Well, I'm sure they're very glad to have you, but I'm sure they're equally glad that we can all take part now from
I think
the
we'll get
comfort of
a
our
lot
own
quick
offices.
if experienced some similar
Mm.
events as anything to go by. We'll get a good mix of people who normally have come and new people who, for some reason or another, haven't been able to come or
Mm.
didn't want to travel or whatever. So I think it'll be good.
Hmm. Yeah, great. Okay, so back to the review of 2020, and the first on the list that we of people guests that we had, continuing on from the 2 weeks ago review, was Kate Gordon, who's a friend of mine and who combines part-time posts in a Chinese organization with freelance work supporting charities. And Kate and I have known each other for many years. We first met when she was working for the West Midlands low pay unit, when there was one in the West Midlands. Um, and in fact, I think, yeah, she was physically, we were kind of working across the road from each other. So it was really nice to have a friend close by, make a new friend close by. And now she provides development support to third sector organisations on governance structures, organisation policies, and employment practices and procedures. Um, and I think it's been one of the most interesting aspects. It's been difficult for her since lockdown, but interesting has been about making sure that the communities that she supports, the Chinese communities who may not have English as a first language, may have English as an additional language, are still getting good information about keeping safe and well. And I know that one of the things that Kate's been involved in is preparing information, simplifying some of the government information into diagrams. And then one of her colleagues translates that into a more polished version of the diagrams using Canva, which is a
Uh-huh.
free online tool that a lot of us in the voluntary sector and the statutory sector
Mhm.
use to present information. So Kate's diagrams, or well, the Chinese Community Centre Birmingham diagrams have been used then to illustrate safe practices to other communities as well. I found, as I say, found them very useful, because sometimes a visual representation of something is much easier to understand and take in than the written word, so bubbles, how to explain bubbles and stuff like that. Um, and then another guest that we uh, thought about through one of our other guests, Andy Sanford, reminded us that Neil Lawrence was around in the on the ether net as well. He's now a web manager and a project owner in Dorset County Council, responsible for the ongoing development and improvement of the website and user experience of digital services. And he's managing a team of content designers and a web assistant for Digital Dorset. Neil was previously a program manager transformation at Oxford City Council, which is where I first met him. And I was really pleased to read on his LinkedIn something somebody wrote about him, and I'd like to read it out again, which is: his enthusiasm for all things digital is without bounds, and this can be seen in the blog he writes as a record of his team's achievements and his very active participation and lead in discussions online with councils around the country, where his opinion is often sought by his peers. Well, I think if anyone working in any job really can get that kind of accolade, I would be very pleased about it. Neil is one of the people who I've met on kind of reception desks at local GovCamp, for example. So he's another camp fan. I don't know, have you met Neil in person or online
Not as far as I can
before,
remember,
Sweyn?
except in passing perhaps at UK Gov Camp years ago.
Mm.
But no, it'd be good to see him maybe later this week as well.
Yeah, and he was keen when he was talking about all the work Digital Dorset has been doing. He's kind of coming in on kind of on the crest of a wave of that now. But they had a digital festival. Was it just after he started?
Just as he started, yes.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting to speak to him before he'd really necessarily met some of his team. It was,
Yeah.
He's raring to go and very enthusiastic. So that's great.
Yeah. So he was a great guest to have on. And
he's
then
still at Ox1 Digital on Twitter. So
that's right. Yeah. And then we had Casper Kennerdale, and he came to us via Paul Clayton, who told us about Casper's great work in London. Casper established Clear Community Web to help tackle the digital divide in Lambeth, Croydon and Southwark, having had many years of experience managing digital operations projects and web development. He'd worked in the industry since 1998 as a client and as in an agency, as well as running his own business. And Casper has lots of great stories to tell us. He's a keen supporter of people and relishes in helping local residents overcome what often feels like adversity with tech talent challenges. And he believes digital should be accessible to all. So again, someone who John Popham would have really liked. About making it fun, making it possible for people to access digital, especially now. And I think he's adapting to lockdown and offering more online services and so on.
Again, it's one of these excellent local projects which are outward looking and involving other people and liaising online with other similar projects. And I think lockdown has definitely encouraged us all to do that.
Yeah, so we'll be keen to keep up with Casper and hear what he's doing on an ongoing basis, and have Paul back. In fact, if Paul and Casper on at some stage, I think they do some work together. It'd be really nice to hear them talk to each other about what they're doing. And so after Casper, we had Madeline Sugden, who's a digital impact consultant working with frontline charities, infrastructure organizations, and other nonprofits. And Madeline helps charities with digital comms, content strategy, and other things that follow, helping organizations maximize their digital content and improve their processes. And Madeline, in fact, was, I think, one of the people who early on wrote for and managed Know How Nonprofit, which NCVO now runs. I don't know if they ran it then, but she and other people wrote great, very handy online guides to being digital. And obviously this was long before the latest situation with COVID. And I think there's information there that goes back a way, but it's still valid, especially because, as we know, some people are still coming online for the first time. They don't feel very digital themselves, and it can be very overpowering, I think, to try and get your head around some of the technology that we take for granted. But um, when you try to explain it, we've seen some of those videos recently where a teacher is getting a class to tell her how to make toast, and she's doing literally what the class tells her, and ends up like s- spreading butter on the plate because they say spread the butter. So she spreads the butter. So unless you get context and
That's right.
really good detail, it can
And
still be
freedom,
very
freedom and
confusing.
permission to ignore all the confusing stuff if possible as well. It's quite
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. And the fear, as we've talked before about, breaking something, is still a very real one. People are worried about breaking something or doing something that they can't undo and stuff like that. So it caution is good, but we don't want people to stop people from getting online if it's useful to them in their lives. So Madeline is very good at that, and she also has started since lockdown a podcast called Radio Lento, Lento, um, where you can listen to soothing music and sounds from nature. And I know I've listened to her seaside ones because it's the sea that I really miss. I grew up where the sea was kind of just over the next field from me, where my family home.
Birmingham's not ideal for that, then, is it? Really?
Birmingham couldn't be
Yeah.
hard to find a place that was more landlocked. Coventry maybe a bit more, even a bit more inland. So I love going to the sea and I love hearing the sea. Whenever I'm in Ireland, obviously it's one of my favorite things to do is go to the sea. Yeah, so on screen now, Sweyn has brought up Radio Lento broadcast, and it's providing places to escape to in 3D immersive sound. And on Twitter, they're at Radio Lento. Um, so yeah, 35,000, nearly 36,000 downloads over
Yeah,
50 episodes, which shows that
lots there.
they're meeting a need. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, very nice. Um, and another guest then was Shirley Ayres, and I
Lovely.
remember I remember in the early days of this program writing a list of people we could invite on if they were willing to come on. Shirley was one of the first people that I wrote down because I met her years ago at an event at LASA about open data, and it was great to kind of connect with her then, and then keep up with her on Twitter just really over the years, and then again more recently, and asking her to come on the show. And Shirley is a qualified social worker and marketer who's worked across the care sector for over 35 years. And Shirley has extensive experience of helping organizations and individuals to understand the value and importance of digital technology and social media. I would say she was probably one of the early adopters again, one of the people John would have had chats with about how things were going and getting other people started. She now works with organizations excited about the potential of digital technology to transform how services are delivered. And some years ago, Shirley authored The Click Guide to Dementia, The Long-Term Care Revolution, and Can Online Innovations Enhance Social Care? So she was ahead of her time,
Mm.
I think, and I think she's talking about updating some of the publications that she wrote before. Um, but she, has written extensively about the value of social technology to support community well-being, and particularly is interested in demonstrating social impact. So, I think somebody who's been there, got the T-shirt, probably designed the Bloomin' T-shirt, it was a great person to have on. Okay, so that was on
I don't
screen
normally
now.
advertise Amazon. You can buy it from different sources, I'm sure, but Amazon's there to be displayed.
Yeah, so on screen now is Click Guide to Dementia paperback. This was published in October 2016. I'm sure it's still very valid information. It's in stock, so obviously it's still available. And the blurb says the Click Guide to Dementia has been developed to help people living with dementia, their family, carers and professionals working in this area to make use of the fantastic resources which are available across the whole spectrum of needs today. We believe it's important to bring all this information together in a single place, and the guide lists more than 100 of these resources. So that sounds really useful, and I have friends who I think will be recommending that too. Um, Great. So that was Shirley, and she talked about stories of John and stories John Popham and Paul Taylor and people like that. And she gave us some suggestions of other people we could invite on. So I'm going to be inviting some of those in the weeks and months to come. So I need to refer back to that list. And then we had one of our more recent guests was Ivor Timchak, who is the CEO of Better Culture, and Better Culture is kind of started from an idea that Ivor had to bring the Pekka culture, pizza culture. It's hard. People pronounce it differently to Leeds, and he found out that somebody else in Leeds had the license for that, so they set up their own organization to kind of do kind of brief presentations. I think it's 10 slides
10
in
slides
60
or a minute
seconds.
each.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
minute each. That's right. And because
Up
John
to
was a
10
big,
slides for 30 seconds. Oh, I can't remember.
some,
It's a set number of slides for a set length of time.
that's right. Yeah. So you need to be quick. But it's a format that has worked really well, and John Popham has supported the Better Culture growth from the beginning,
He
and
was their chief videographer from the start,
that's right.
as
So I
he
think
was
if
for
you
so
go
many people.
online, you'll see some of his filming. But Ivor himself studied filmmaking and wrote a strip cartoon, formed a rock band, tried stand-up comedy, and still performs stand-up because he's, as he says himself, it's such a good learning ground for presentation skills. And ran his own graphic design business for many years. But now he earns most of his income from live caricature work and running workshops for encouraging creativity in the workplace. And Ivor was a very lively guest with lots of stories about John and other people who have come to present. And the great thing about Better Culture is that they ran a tribute night to John at the end of December, which both of us were at, Sweyn and I, and they had some really lively presentations. Again, I think that's available online now. Just about different things, but the one thing they had that was really challenging, and that worked really well, was to do someone to do a presentation with slides they hadn't seen before and just kind of make it up on the hoof. And the person that did that was really funny and had obviously done it before, because I thought of volunteering, but I'm glad I didn't when I heard them do it. So yeah, interesting things to do during lockdown and interesting things to catch up on. Okay, and so we picked up a few other stories in the last while, and the one I want to mention first of all is the Digital Access Network meetup, and this was run by Digital Access West Yorkshire, which is a newish network of organisations in West Yorkshire concerned with digital exclusion and noticing that certain people were being left out. And they have been running sessions and talking amongst themselves to kind of address the deficit. But on Thursday last week, they organised a meetup, a network meetup for anybody interested in digital inclusion, because they have had lots of requests from around the country from other authorities and other organizations wanting to set up digital inclusion projects about repurposing devices and generally addressing the needs that we know are so pressing. So they held this meeting, and they had over 100 people sign up, and I think they had about 60 to 80 people on the night from all around the country. And we have a list of the where people came from: Oxford, Birmingham,
I'm on the
West
list, even though I
West
missed the event.
yeah,
So
West Sussex. Yeah, a lot of people signed up and weren't able to come in the end, but it was the first of other ones they'll have. Sefton Libraries, Southend, um, Worcestershire, Wimborne, Kirklees, Orkney. Yeah, there may be another Orkney people. Haringey, Lancaster. Um, where else? Ilkley, Canterbury. Um, Oh, somebody from Jakarta signed up. That was
oh
interesting.
wow.
Mm.
So what was the
Um,
actual focus in the end on the day? Was it
it was there were some presentations from people who had set up projects and what their learning was, and um, the kind of ongoing support that's available. And then we broke into smaller groups and in breakout rooms talked about different things. So the themes were included partnerships, sustainability, fundraising, and the one I went into was comms, communications, which obviously we do
Uh-huh.
here. And I think for me the comms is the overriding, I would say this, but the overriding thing that I think needs to kind of be ramped up, because there are so many projects going on, as we know, because we've talked about them on this show the whole time. But I think some people are starting off projects without realizing that there is so much good material out there,
Yeah,
including,
it,
as
wa-
we have
yeah,
as we have had on this show, the reboot project, the playbook book that's available, so that people don't have to start from scratch. And Chris Ashford actually was at the meeting as well, and I chatted a bit with him behind the scenes, and um, other people kind of were talking about him as well. And there are other networks who are kind of coming on board now and publishing maps of schools that need help. And there was a head teacher on talking about what schools need and stuff. So I talked to him briefly about what was the best way of communicating with schools. My colleague Ted Ryan here at our organization is an ex-teacher, and he knows very, very well how challenging it is to communicate with schools, because they have so many calls on their time. It's hard to get
yes.
into their calendar. They're
I'm a partner of
planning.
a senior teacher, and I also used to try to do some support in schools, not her school, but other schools.
Mm,
And yeah, it's as you say, teachers are so busy and so focused on today
yeah.
that you've got to meet them there and then work backwards. Otherwise, it's
Absolutely.
very
Yeah. I
difficult.
mean, it comes back to, I think, what we would have said and have been saying all along in this show about building relationships with people. If you
Mm,
have built the relationship to have the trust with the organizations you're
mm,
trying to help, that they'll find your messages about tech that much easier then
yeah.
to take in and
And I
cooperate
think
with.
the schools across the UK done fantastic work in you know, getting themselves organised to deliver learning online
Mm,
during lockdown. Now that we're back with schools closed again as well, um, it's just that it's fantastically difficult for individual teachers always
mm,
to get the time to focus on that because they've got so many other things to do.
hmm Yeah. So I think there will be other meetings. They were trying to get somebody to take on the mantle of to kind of organize the next meeting at the meeting last week. I don't know if anybody actually volunteered in the end, but I think there's a need for like a few of those meetings where you just kind of chat and thrash
Yeah,
out and then maybe start working together. So
yeah,
but I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with some of those people, including Janet Gunter from the Restart Project, and they're the ones who have done a list of the projects that are doing donate your device up and down the country. So that's very useful to have on their website.
yes,
Okay, we'll move on to some of the stories we picked up. I think some of these we picked up in December, so it'd be good to get them discussed and then move on to newer stories. But the first one was Google developing an app to enable persons with motor impairment to communicate with eye gaze technology. And this is one we picked up from a website called g3ict.org. Um, and Google, together with a speech and language therapist, Richard Cave, have developed an experimental Android app designed to provide people living with speech and motor impairments, particularly those who are nonverbal and require communication assistance, with a way to express themselves. So the machine is called Look to Speak, and it uses machine learning and eye gaze technology, letting people use their eyes to look left, right, or up to select from a list of phases for their phone to speak out loud. Um, and the app can also be used to snooze the screen and edit a user's phrasebook. And some of the phrases include hello, thank you, yes, and no. And the therapist wrote in a blog post, as mobile devices become more ubiquitous and powerful with technologies like machine learning built right into them, I've thought about the way phones can work alongside assistive technologies. Together, these tools can open up new possibilities, especially for people around the world who might now have access to this technology for the first time. And he's the blog post we kind of have as well. And he believes Look to Speak could be used as an extension to existing eye gaze technology. haven't had any exposure to that. I don't think, Sweyn. Is that something you've come across
Not at
previously?
all. No, I haven't. I don't know anything about this.
Mm. Yeah, so maybe somebody who's listening to us has some experience of it, would like to come on the show and talk to us about their experience. We'd be very glad to hear from them.
Yeah.
And the next story is about digital inclusion in mental health, and this is a guide from amhp.org.uk, which is a guide to help increase choice and improve access to digital mental health services. And again, digital mental health is something that we have talked about on the show. Sweyn, have you got the link to the to that story? If you haven't, I can probably open it.
Are you not seeing it?
No, I'm not actually.
Okay, right.
It's still the
I'll stop
previous
sharing
one.
and try again.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just get that.
Okay. So anyway, I'll talk a bit about
Um,
it, and it's a guide that aims to include digital inclusivity within mental health provider organisations, and working through the guide, service leads and organisation boards will be able to evaluate where they are now in terms of digital inclusivity. And I believe it's on the screen now. Yeah. Thanks, Sweyn. And what they need to do next, and it sets out practical steps for improvement and includes case studies from across providers in England, reflections for individuals who access services of their experiences and challenges, and tips for addressing those challenges. And it's developed, as I said, by the Association of Mental Health Providers and the Mental Health Network's Digital Mental Health Forum, and is also informed by individuals who access or provide services from across the statutory, voluntary, and independent mental health sector. Well, I think that can only be useful.
I think the report can actually be downloaded from that page as well. So
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm always happy to I think case studies are good because it helps you relate to the learning that is available. And we're all concerned with our mental health, especially now. And it's good. It'll be good to get help in that area. So
yes,
we'd recommend that to people. And then there was a story in December. The government announced a 7.5 million fund to fight loneliness in England, and recognizing that it's an epidemic of loneliness. Really, that's ongoing. That is not COVID didn't start this, but it's kind of something that's been we're more aware of now. And apparently, there's a poll of 2,100 adults in Great Britain commissioned by the British Psychological Society, which found that 41% of them were worried about those close to them feeling isolated in the weeks around Christmas, and 27% said they were not planning on spending Christmas with loved ones, and that must have been very hard, as we know it was, for a lot of people. The charity data, Age UK, estimates there are approximately 1.4 million chronically lonely older people in England. And from the 750 million charity funding package, which was announced in April last year, just 24 million went towards reducing loneliness, and a further 45 million to organisations supporting people's mental health. But the government has then decided in December there will be a new campaign to highlight the Charter for Social Housing Residents in February of this year. So we look forward to that. The campaign will highlight what the changes will mean for residents and how they can access support. Well, I think that'll be an ongoing story for us, Sweyn.
yes, much. I mean, it's
Yeah.
right at the core of what John wanted to start this show for, was to
Yeah.
address that kind of issue, and we're always certainly be interested to see all the initiatives that are going on in that area.
Excellent. And then this is something else. Actually, the next story was something that came up at the Digital Access Network meetup last week that I referred to earlier. This is about wiping your machine for donation. Now, I don't know. I think this is one of the things where we would urge caution, I suppose. If you're not techie, maybe this is not the best place to start with doing something. But if you are, and you
Make
feel
sure you do this to the correct machine. That's my first piece of advice. I have in the past wiped the wrong machine. And once you do
wow,
that, because you can't get the information back, you're stuffed, really.
wow, that sounds like a program
So,
all on
yes,
its own,
that's for
Sweyn.
my best things what I got wrong program.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so sticking with this one, Digital Access West Yorkshire have got on their website this guide to wiping your machine for donation. But as I say, we're urging some caution because it assumes some familiarity with your technology and kind of not have the fear of doing the wrong thing. So I think
I
this will
think
be for
the onus needs to be on people looking for donations to have some awareness of how this works and just
yeah.
to reassure their users, reassure donors that either they're going to do it or they can provide contacts for somebody who can do it, or they can ask if they have the confidence, people who are donating the machines themselves to do it themselves.
Hmm.
It's
So
an important thing to address and make sure everybody is aware of, because uh, all of these donated device programs will have this built into them in some way. These are just the technical details about how to do it. And I think that people donating um, devices need to be confident to be able to ask whether this is happening and to understand the answer.
yeah, in fact, there was somebody on that meeting last week who spoke very authoritatively about this, about reassuring corporates and others. And in fact, I thought he might be a good guest for the show. So
Mm.
I'm in touch with getting in touch
Mm.
with him. But anyway, back to this website, and it does go through several methods of wiping your machine for Windows 7 users, Windows 8, Windows 10, Apple users, and so on. So, um, if you have the confidence and you want to try and do this, we're urging caution, but the information is there, and it's good to see it. It's good to see it shared so openly, isn't it, Swain? Because
It is,
this could
because
be,
there's a lot of mystery about this sort of stuff, but there's really
yeah,
nothing mysterious about it. It's just a routine to go through. There are various levels of certification for the how hard it is to get any of the information back. For example, there are some methods of doing this where if the security services spent a year on your machine, they would eventually get something back. But for most people, that's not too much of a concern. If you can get if you can get everything deleted to that sort of level of deletion, then most people are happy with that.
yeah, great. Okay, so that's how to wipe your machine for donation. And moving on to the next story, which is about laptops and makerspaces UK wide. And this is a Google Doc, which the Digital Access Network referred to previously. We're collecting information to map the range of refurb and redistribute projects across the UK dedicated to getting usable laptops into the hands of children, families, and individuals who need them. So they wanted to create an easy way for anyone to donate kit or fund their local initiative to have impact. And this is one of the things that probably crosses over with the Reboot project, which will have similar, and also the Restart project. So they won't be the only ones who are gathering this information, but it'll be good to kind of see that it is being gathered and that people can contribute to this project and other places where donation is going on around the country. I mean, really, my personal opinion is that this should be a government responsibility, but government has lots of responsibilities. And we do know that people do also want to donate. This is meeting a philanthropic need as well. Um, so it's good to see that happening. If you're not familiar, readers or listeners, with what a makerspace is, my experience of them is that they are places where people, as the name suggests, make things, but also bring things to be fixed, and where they use all kinds of technology. I've seen lathes at places. I've seen printing machines, and so on. Swain, are you familiar? We're seeing what you're typing on your screen now, Swain. If you're
Yes,
okay
I'm
with
just
that, yeah.
doing a bit of a demonstration of what information they're looking for. So it's really just basic contact information.
Yeah, and then they ask for more details on the next pages, about the types of types of help you're able to offer. Yeah, can you refurbish laptops? Can you securely wipe hard drives? How do you receive laptop donations? And how would you like to be informed of donations? So it's good information. It's a good basic guide to um, gathering that kind of information. And of course, this is on a Google form, which is freely available. anybody with a Gmail account. Also asking on the final page, do you have any mechanism set for receiving cash donations? Because some people may want to offer money towards
Yeah,
this system, and then they ask for the URL with the donations page. Again, a word of caution just to make sure that you're providing the correct donations page and that you're not getting scammed. So
absolutely.
user discretion on that. Use your
Yeah,
intelligence, your skepticism.
because these sorts of projects, they typically, there's quite a bit of technical work to do to the devices to either wipe them or set them up, and they're either going to receive voluntary effort from people who know how to do that, or they're going to be paying people to do the technical work, in which case they would need cash. So either way seems reasonable enough. There's lots of very good value local businesses who could provide the technical skill needed if that was not otherwise available. But equally, there's some projects that you can donate your time to rather than your money. So both work. Now I mustn't submit
Absolutely.
this because it doesn't make any sense.
No, but I think they've had quite a few, so it's good to gathering information is a critical part of the work that we do. Okay, we've got two more stories, which we will get in before we finish the close the show today. So the next one is NHSX care home iPads. NHSX is a part of the NHS that deals with technology and that sort of thing that we are more concerned with. And this was a story we picked up just today, actually, from Digital Social Care, digitalsocialcare.co.uk. Um, and it tells us that to help care homes in England to provide remote care to residents, NHSX is gifting up to 11,000 iPads to care homes, part of a package of support for a range of care providers. And the iPads have been allocated to CQC registered care homes in England, whose completed applications demonstrate they meet the eligibility criteria and had the greatest need for support due to a lack of access to tablet devices able to support remote consultations. Now, we've had discussions on this program before about iPads versus other tablets. We, I think the best thing to say is other tablet devices are available, and sometimes they're cheaper. Often they're cheaper. So, but this scheme is using iPads, so that's great. And it explains the article explains how the iPad will benefit your care home and your residents, and staff can use the iPads to hold video consultations with health and social care professionals and organise face-to-face appointments. They can connect residents with loved ones remotely, which is a key one for us. They can reorder medications for residents and access information held in their GP record, use NHS Mail, which is a secure NHS internal mail service, and use other applications and tools that will help to support the care of your residents. And this is only a small number of things you can do with an iPad. As long as you've got an iPad and a browser, then the world's your oyster, really.
Yeah, what they're
Um,
doing, they're incorporating these iPads into basically as NHS devices with access to NHS systems. So I guess that's maybe why they've stuck to iPads in this case.
right, that
Mobile
explains
device
it.
management, it won't be available on all tablets, but they would need that if they were going to use NHS Mail and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So they go on to explain that the care home is responsible for managing all the data stored on the iPads and so on. So there is privacy, and they're taking data protection as seriously as as you would expect them to do. But it's great to see that connecting residents with loved ones remotely is a key element of what they want these to be able to do, and it'll be great to hear how they're getting on with that. If we can speak to somebody about that project, we'd be delighted to have somebody on the show.
Yes.
Um, Care homes are a place where our key demographic will be living now, and one of our key demographics, and we'd like to hear from somebody. So if anybody is in a care home, receiving care or providing care to residents and would like to come on the show and talk about how they're helping their residents become more digitally kind of included, we'd love to hear about that, including non-CQC registered care homes. There's
Yes.
plenty of other care homes. I'm sure are doing great work as well. So we'd be delighted to hear from either. And the last story was one we picked up just before the show came on air, really, which was looking at
Yes.
digital inclusion from the ground up. And this is from an academic called Kiral Mann, and she has been is studying digital inclusion from the ground up, and it says in this blog post that she thinks that small, local, human-centered interventions are too often overlooked as an answer to the big question of digital inclusion. So she's glad to see so many local community initiatives and councils represented at this event where she was giving a keynote speech. Um, she says very little research work on digital exclusion and digital skills in particular looks at the lived experience of digitally excluded people. So she's an anthropologist and she felt there was a gap that needed to be filled. And how do we assess the best and worst practices if no one's going into the field to see how the practices are being played out? So the Oxfordshire Digital Inclusion Project set out to do that, and they collected a mix of data, including surveys, semi-structured interviews, and crucially, participant observation of people seeking digital help at the Oxfordshire County Library. And again, libraries are mentioned, which is a great place that we recommend all of the time on this show. Um, and she's also spoken to broadband. What's that stand for again, Sweyn? Broadband
Oh,
Access Rural Network.
rural network.
Yeah,
Yes. Rural.
Chris Condor will be on to correct us about that. But she's spoken to people there and other community initiatives. And I think the research is ongoing about how local initiatives really work. So she herself became a digital helper 2 years ago, seeing firsthand what the digital divide looks like. And the blog post goes on to talk about help. Someone she met while a digital helper, Margaret, um, not her real name, who came into the library looking for help to search the council housing list online. She had a letter, explaining that the searches had to be made online. It was obvious Margaret wasn't comfortable with computers, so um, sat down and helped her. Kiral, sorry, sat down and helped her um, with her search. Um, she needed an email address, but she didn't have email, Margaret, so they had to set up an email account for her. And I've come across this again recently. My own mother again. Sorry, Mum. I know I keep talking about you. Um, but applying for a driving license online in Ireland, or applying for a renewal of driving license, you now need a government ID account, for which you need an email address. Now, Mum has an email address, but she doesn't always want to share that with everybody. So it was a little bit of a barrier. I think she's overcome it. My sister's helping her with that now, but um, email using having an email address and using it again, we just take it for granted, but not everybody does. So again, going on to the story, back to Margaret's story, she then had to confirm her identity using two-factor authentication. So she was supposed to have a mobile phone, but she didn't have a mobile phone. So the digital helper had to try and find an alternative email provider who didn't require a mobile phone number. And then Margaret's help session time was up. So that sounds like a real struggle. Um, with multiple barriers that really weren't helpful. And we need to be aware those things are still happening, so that when we talk about trying to help people, we recognize the kind of barriers that can arise, and that need to be overcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
So I'm going
so
to try and get Kira on the show, because I think it'd be
yes, that
good
would be
to hear
great.
more
She
about
does.
stories that she has to
I
tell.
think starting as she does with people who are in the situation of having a need and working out, looking at things from their point of view, it's something we should all do, and it's something which we all claim that we would do or might do in some way, but we're all actually very poor at doing that
Yeah.
once we've actually learned what to do ourselves.
Hmm.
I think we're running out of time.
We are. So thanks again for a great show and some really good stories there. Thanks to all our guests last year who came on the show, and we look forward to having another range of interesting people to talk to and listen to and tell their stories about digital inclusion. So until the next time, as John would say, stay safe and stay connected. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you.